What's up, gamers? We all love our retro handhelds, but one thing that can really take your handheld to the next level is a custom firmware. And today I'm going to show you how to install a custom Linux distribution called RockNix. And I think you're really going to like it. So let's get into it. Stock operating systems aren't always bad, but sometimes they have some bugs and you need to work those out. RockNix has really done wonders on my RG Arc S, and so today I'm going to install it also on my RG Cube XX. And so to do that, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need an internet connection, obviously, and a computer. You're going to need a couple of new branded micro SD cards. And you're going to need a micro SD card reader of some kind. Maybe your computer already has that built in. If not, I'll have a link to this reader in the description below. Once you have all those things gathered together and you're ready to go, we're going to go ahead and go to your web browser and type in RockNix OS in a search engine, and you're going to see probably rocknix.org, which is their wiki page. Today I'm going to be looking though at their GitHub page, only because that's the one I used when I did my installation, so I'm a little more familiar with it. As of this recording, this is the latest one that came out on January 18th of 2025, and as you scroll down, it's going to have some simple installation instructions here. Download the latest version, decompress the image, write the image to an SD card using an imaging tool. The one that I like is Balena Etcher, but you can use Raspberry Pi Imager, Win32 Disk Imager, any tool that you have that can write an image to a card. And then under that, you're going to see a list of all the devices that this OS supports. For example, the R36S is a really popular one. The Powkiddy RGB10X, that's one I reviewed late last year. It's a great little budget device. Of course, the RGB30, another fan favorite. Today I'm going to be doing the Anbernic RG Cube XX, so I'm going to download this image right here. There we go. Now this is a 1.5 gigabyte file, so just be aware of the file size there. But you can see just how many different devices this runs on, even like the Retroid Pocket 5 and Retroid Pocket Mini. One thing that I do find slightly, not annoying, but maybe difficult with this hobby is that there are so many different operating systems, and they all have their own little hotkeys and shortcuts and different little quirks about them. And I think, man, if I can get one that runs on all of my different devices, or as many of them as possible, that saves me a lot of time remembering how and where things are and how they work. So I really like that this is available on so many different systems, and I hope that they can add more. Once the image finishes downloading, you're just going to double click and extract the image anywhere you want, as long as you know where it is. So I'm just going to keep it here in my downloads folder, because after I'm done with this, I'm going to delete it. And one thing I want to make sure I mention as we get started is please do not erase the card that came with your device. There is a folder on here called BIOS, and there are BIOS files in that folder that you need to run a lot of the games that you might want to play. We're going to copy and paste those BIOS files over onto our new card in a new BIOS folder. You're going to need those. You're also going to want probably the games that came on the card that came with your system, so we can copy and paste those over as well. Now, because the file structure of everything is going to change, you can't just take your old SD card and put it in here and start playing your games. You have to move the files over into the new folder system that RockNix is going to create. The next thing you need to do is put your branded SD card into your computer. If you're using a new one, you should be completely good to go. If not, you're going to need to format that card. On PC, I think you can just right click and hit format. On Mac, you can right click as well, and you can use MS-DOS FAT for this, or exFAT, whichever one you want to do. I typically use exFAT, and I'm going to rename it RockNix, and we're going to see what happens there. I'm going to hit erase, and there we go. So now that we've done that, we're going to need to open up Balena Etcher. Balena Etcher looks like this. It has a little green cube. There is a free version of this software, so just make sure that you download the free version. There probably is also a paid version, but I've never used that. This has always worked just fine for me. You're going to click on Flash from File. You're going to click on the file you want, which is that extracted image file that we opened earlier. You're going to hit Open. You're going to select your target, which is your SD card. Please do not select your hard drive. One thing I do like about Balena Etcher is that it tells you which drives are the large drives and basically says, hey, this is probably not the one you want, which is nice. So select your SD card and then hit flash. It's going to ask you probably for your password. You're going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and install that. It will begin flashing the OS to the SD card. And once we have this done, as you can see here, it's going to take about a minute with mine. Your time, of course, might vary, but after we get done with this, I'm going to show you a couple of things that you might want to set up on the OS once you get it booted up. And also there's a trick with these H700 devices that we have to do to make sure that it runs properly. I'll also show you where to put these game files. All right, so if everything goes well, it's going to say flash completed, give you a little green check mark, and then we should be good to go. When it finishes, you won't see the card in your computer anymore. It will have ejected that. So we're going to go ahead and take that out of the computer. And with your device turned off, of course, we're going to insert this into SD card slot 1. Typically with these, the OS goes in the first SD card slot, TF1 slot. And you're going to put a second card in the TF2 slot that is completely blank as well, and that's where we're going to store our games. Now once again, if your second SD card is a new branded card, you don't need to do anything, but if it's not, if it's an older card that you want to reuse, not the one that came with your system, because remember we still need those files off of there, you can erase that disk, and reset it. On the RockNix card that we just made that has the OS on it, we're going to find our folder that says device trees, and we're going to find our device. For me, it's the RG Cube XX. We're going to copy that into the root folder, just like that. And then it says once the correct DTP file has been copied in the root, you need to rename it to dtb.img, all lowercase. That's what we're going to do. dtb.img, all lowercase. And it gave me a warning there. I went ahead and hit OK because that's what the instructions say to do. So we're going to see if this works. I've never installed this on my Cube before, so here we go. Once we've done that, that's the only special instruction for this series. We can eject that card, it says, and now we're going to place that card in the TF1 slot, and now we're going to boot up our device. There we go. This is going to take a minute to do. It's going to be doing some stuff in the background to install this, and there it's booted up. You can see it is currently working. That's good news. We're on the right track. What I'm going to go ahead and do next is hit select. I'm going to go down to shut down system and hit A, and it's going to ask me yes, and I'm going to say yes. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to get this second card set up so I can add my BIOS files and my ROMs. So I'm going to insert that card into TF2, power it on, and it's going to set up that second SD card. And while it does that, I'm going to go ahead and show you on here. There are some things you might want to do. If you hit start from the main menu, it's going to pull up your settings. And one of the first things that I do is I set up my network. So you scroll down to network settings. You'll have to go here first to enable Wi-Fi. And then once that box is ticked to the right, then you can enter your Wi-Fi SSID and your password. This is also the section where you can set up sync thing or a cloud drive to sync your save files across devices if you want to do that. A couple of spots below that, you have updates and downloads where you can find themes, and you can have it check for updates automatically, and you can select to start updates. Of course, we just did the latest thing, but in the future, this does do wireless over-the-air updates. The other two things you might want to know about are Scraper. You can log into Screen Scraper, and it will scrape artwork for you for all of your game ROMs. You can even set it to download short little gameplay videos that it can play when you select a game, and that's a really awesome free service. You have to make an account, so you do have to log into that, and you do that under Scraper settings right there, and it'll be at the bottom. I don't want to show you my login, so I'm not going to go to that, but that's where that is. And then retro achievements. I love retro achievements. They are so awesome. So retro achievements, well, there you can see some of the games that I've been playing and the retro achievements that I have there, but that's not where you log into retro achievements. You actually do that under game settings right here, the next section, and you'll see right there the third thing is retro achievement settings, and when you tap into that, it will take you to where you can put in your username and password. And since you've already connected to the network, anytime that you boot up a game, it will log you into retro achievements for that game. So those are just some basic things that you're going to want to set up, I think, pretty much right away. But now that this is booted back up, I'm going to turn this off one more time by hitting select, going down to shutdown, and shutting down the system, hitting yes, because now I need to remove that second SD card so we can add our games, which means, you guessed it, we're going back to the computer. Now that we have our RockNix ROMs card loaded on the computer, you will see we have a ROMs folder and a whole bunch of empty folders. The first one I want you to find is this one that says BIOS, because we need those BIOS files. So I'm going to open another tab here. I'm going to go to my other card, and no matter what your file system looks like on your other card, the one that came with your system, somewhere on that card there will be a folder called BIOS, and it will have a bunch of files that look like this. They all are for different systems. They help those different systems run and be emulated. There's a whole bunch of them. You might not have as many as I do here, but whatever you have, you will need to move over. So I'm going to select all, and I am just going to drag and drop all of them, and it's going to copy those over onto my new card. And you can see there that it is copying. It's about 450 megabytes worth of information. And back over here on the new card, it is slowly copying all those things over. Now, one question I always get is, hey, where do I put these games again? And some people, I think, get confused by the file system because it's not always named what you think it's going to be named. So for example, here you have Atari 800. That's named after the system itself, Atari 800. All of these really are in a way, but some of them just might be a name that you're not familiar with. So for example, the Sega Dreamcast. It might be named Dreamcast. It might be named Sega Dreamcast. It might be named DC for Dreamcast. Whatever it's named on your original card, you just need to find that and then put those ROMs, which are these files here, onto your new card. You also don't have to use all of them. Maybe you just want a select few. Once you found the ones you want, go ahead and drag and drop them into your new folder. Here's another great example. Those of us that grew up in the USA, we know the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES. But oftentimes on these cards, that's not what it's called. It's called Famicom, which is what it was known as everywhere else in the world. Or it might just say FC for Famicom, Family Computer. So you're going to find the Famicom games that you want, and you can move them over. And one thing that is interesting with this setup is that it doesn't just have Famicom, it also does have NES. And so the card you get might have both. And mine are all in zip files, but some of yours might say .fc file for Famicom, or it might say .nes. Those can really run out of the same folder, I believe, but regardless, you're going to want to put these in the correct system folder, because if your game ROM isn't in the right system folder, for example, if you have a Super NES game in your NES folder, it's not going to run because your handheld isn't going to know what to do with that. It has to have the right file path in order to run correctly. So I'm just going to take a couple of NES files for the moment, move them over. And if you get confused by any of these, just use a search engine and look it up. You can probably just type in something like, what does NGPC mean on my retro handheld? And it's going to tell you Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is a really cool retro system, by the way, and you should be checking out those games. But for the sake of time today, I am just going to stick a couple of games on here. We're going to put this card back in the system, turn it on one last time, and it's going to read that card and go through and catalog the ROMs that you put on here, and it's going to open up those system folders on your main menu. We'll see there. Now I have Dreamcast, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo Entertainment System. Did not have those before, and there we go. Whoa! Is anybody excited about the new Fantastic Four movie coming out? Let me know in the comments. I know that has nothing to do with this video. But we just released the trailer the other day, the teaser one, so it's got me thinking about it. Checkpoint. To save a game, by the way, you hold menu and hit R1. There you have the save state. Menu and L1 loads that save state. And to quit a game, you hold menu and hit start twice. And that is pretty much it. That's RockNix. This is a really easy install, and I highly recommend it. Obviously, I'm just trying it out for the first time on camera on the RG Cube XX, but I've tried it out on the RGB30 previously and liked it. It really, truly transformed my RG Arc S into a completely amazing experience. And so I think you're really going to like it too. But hey, if you found this tutorial helpful, please like, subscribe, maybe share this video with a friend, and consider becoming a channel member. Those things all help out a lot. I appreciate you watching. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip.